In psychology, trait theory is an approach to the study of human personality. Trait theorists are primarily interested in the measurement of traits, which can be defined as habitual patterns of behavior, thought, and emotion. According to this perspective, traits are relatively stable over time, differ across individuals, and influence behavior. Traits are in contrast to states which are more transitory dispositions. Gordon Allport was an early pioneer in the study of traits, which he sometimes referred to as dispositions. In his approach, central traits are basic to an individual's personality, whereas secondary traits are more peripheral. Common traits are those recognized within a culture and may vary between cultures. Cardinal traits are those by which an individual may be strongly recognized. Since Allport's time, trait theorists have focused more on group statistics than on single individuals. Allport called these two emphases nomothetic and idiographic, respectively. There is a nearly unlimited number of potential traits that could be used to describe personality. The statistical technique of factor analysis, however, has demonstrated that particular clusters of traits reliably correlate together. Hans Eysenck has suggested that personality is reducible to three major traits: neuroticism, extroversion, and psychoticism. Other researchers argue that more factors are needed to adequately describe human personality, including humor, wealth, and beauty. Many psychologists currently believe that 5 factors are sufficient. These big 5 personality traits are neuroticism, extroversion, openness to experience, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. These are actually continuums, and each factor will also vary by intensity. Virtually all trait models, and even ancient Greek philosophy, include extroversion versus introversion as a central dimension of human personality. Another prominent trait that is found in nearly all models is neuroticism, or emotional instability. The two taxonomies, both approaches extensively use self-report questionnaires. The factors are intended to be orthogonal, though there are often small positive correlations between factors. The 5-factor model in particular has been criticized for losing the orthogonal structure between factors. Hans Eysenck has argued that fewer factors are superior to a larger number of partly related ones. Although these two approaches are comparable because of the use of factor analysis to construct hierarchical taxonomies, they differ in the organization in number of factors. Whatever the causes, however, psychoticism marks the two approaches apart, as the 5-factor model contains no such trait. Moreover, psychoticism, unlike any of the other factors in either approach, does not fit a normal distribution curve. Indeed, scores are rarely high, thus skewing a normal distribution. However, when they are high, there is considerable overlap with psychiatric conditions such as antisocial and schizoid personality disorders. Similarly, high scorers on neuroticism are more susceptible to sleep and psychosomatic disorders. 5-factor approaches can also predict future mental disorders. Lower-order factors. There are 2 higher-order factors that both taxonomies clearly share: extroversion and neuroticism. Both approaches broadly accept that extroversion is associated with sociability and positive affect, whereas neuroticism is associated with emotional instability and negative affect. Many lower-order factors, or facets, are similar between the two taxonomies. For instance, both approaches contain factors for sociability, gregariousness, for activity levels, and for assertiveness within the higher-order factor extroversion. However, there are differences too. First, the 3-factor approach contains 9 lower-order factors and the 5-factor approach is 6. Eysenck's psychoticism factor incorporates some of the polar opposites of the lower-order factors of openness, agreeableness and conscientiousness. A high scorer on tough-mindedness and psychoticism would score low on tender-mindedness and agreeableness. Most of the differences between the taxonomies stem from the 3-factor model's emphasis on fewer higher-order factors. Causality. Although both major trait models are descriptive, only the 3-factor model offers a detailed causal explanation. Eysenck suggests that different personality traits are caused by the properties of the brain, which themselves are the result of genetic factors. In particular, the three-factor model identifies the reticular system and the limbic system in the brain as key components that mediate cortical arousal and emotional responses respectively. Eysenck advocates that extroverts have low levels of cortical arousal and introverts have high levels, leading extroverts to seek out more stimulation from socializing and being venturesome. Moreover, Eysenck surmised that there would be an optimal level of arousal, after which inhibition would occur, and that this would be different for each person. In a similar vein, the three-factor approach theorizes that neuroticism is mediated by levels of arousal in the limbic system and that individual differences arise because of variable activation thresholds between people. Therefore, highly neurotic people when presented with minor stresses, will exceed this threshold, whereas people low in neuroticism will not exceed normal activation levels, even when presented with large stressors. By contrast, proponents of the five-factor approach assume a role of genetics and environment but offer no explicit causal explanation. Given this emphasis on biology in the three-factor approach, it would be expected that the third trait, psychoticism, would have a similar explanation. However, the causal properties of this state are not well defined. Eysenck has suggested that psychoticism is related to testosterone levels and is an inverse function of the serotonergic system, but he later revised this, linking it instead to the dopaminergic system. List of personality traits, see also, 16 personality factors, Big Five personality traits, Hans Eysenck, Ixaco model of personality structure, NEOPI, personality psychology, Alternative 5 model of personality, cultural schema theory, Sondhi test, references.